were essentially my professors in the art of storytelling. Although I didn't look at it that way then, I just looked at it as escaping into these pages and having a wonderful time in these pages. Also, growing up in the 80s, it's movies and television, and both the books and the films and television back then had protagonists for the most part that had special operations experience in Vietnam. So from Magnum PI to Simon and Simon, well, one of the brothers anyway, the A-Team, Miami Vice, like all these guys had a background and in Vietnam.
Right.
And so as either, let's say, a Navy SEAL, Army Special Forces, Marine sniper, CIA paramilitary, something like that. That was very common, I should say. I shouldn't say everyone, but it was very common. And that allowed them now to solve problems as a private investigator, as a police officer, as whatever they're, a stuntman, or whatever they're doing in 80s television, movies, or books.
Right.
And so I identified with that because from age 7 onward, I wanted to be a SEAL. And even before that, I knew I was going to serve my country in uniform. My grandfather was killed in World War II. He was a Corsair pilot, Marine. So for those listening, it was the plane that had the gull wings that would fold up, fit on the aircraft carriers that way. And there was a TV show called Black Sheep Squadron. It actually came out as Baba Black Sheep, and then it was syndicated as Black Sheep Squadron with Robert Conrad, actor, playing Pappy Boynton, Marine Corps Medal of Honor recipient. And he flew the same plane as my grandfather. For all those books that I read that we talked about, all those movies that I saw we talked about, and the TV shows, those things impacted me and were a driver, even though I think it was in my DNA. I think even without them, even without if there weren't books and if there wasn't television and if there wasn't any movies, I would still have wanted to join whatever it was called at the time, to protect the tribe, to protect the community, to protect society, whatever it was. I think I was just in me inherently. Yeah. But it certainly didn't hurt that I saw The Frogmen, which is an old black and white film, which is how I found out about SEALs, which led me to the library with my mom to do research into what SEALs were and UDT and what they did in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. And most of it was in Vietnam at the time in the early 80s that I could find, even though there wasn't much of it. You could find the end of the internet back then. You could go to the end of that library shelf, that was the end of the internet. You could read everything possible written about SEALs in the early 80s. Of course, now you couldn't possibly do it with all the information online, which is also a problem, because you can study now how to do something essentially indefinitely. So let's say you want to be an author, and back then you could maybe hit a few books out there that gave you some tips, and then you have to dive in because now you've exhausted everything that you could find on how to write a book.
Sure.
Like that. Now you can study it forever and never take the step and actually do it. They kept beeping at me. One started to do an upload, so I had the Ram Power Wagon 75th anniversary edition. I was super excited to get the Power Wagon because of its history going back to like World War II, and I was just a huge fan of them, and so I'm a sucker for anniversary edition anything. So I have my BMW motorcycle. I have an R9T that's an anniversary edition, so I'm just a sucker for those things. So I got it all, put the tires on, the suspension, and the whole thing, anyway, it's a computer still. It's like, and it has a little thing. I don't want to have a truck where I'm turning this little knob like it's a Range Rover or something like that. I want
something I can grab with my fist.
I want to slam that thing into reverse. I don't want to go to reverse.
Yeah, I know.
No. Yeah, DC vintage watches for my Seiko stuff. So in Vietnam, obviously there's a history with special operations and Seiko watches in Vietnam in particular.
Really?
And so I weave that into the story as well.
It's like an intricate, that's when you're talking about breaking stuff down to the very small, fine details. Seiko watches have a significant relationship with the Vietnam era.
Yep. Big time.
What is that relationship?
Waltham Compass. Well, I think they were not very expensive. They were reliable. They put a Waltham compass right there on the nylon band.
Okay.
So I think there were 4. I might get this wrong, but people can go to Watches of Espionage and check it out. And I'm sure there's multiple articles on the exact watches and the references that guys wore in Vietnam. I think there were 4, possibly 5 that guys were issued, or some of them bought over the years. But in my books, I have Tom Reece, James Reece's father. That's my protagonist in the other contemporary novels. Yeah. And then this is 1968, like I said. But in the novels that are contemporary, I have James Reece has his dad's, and I have a Submariner, and I think in the early books I said that he got it at a PX in Vietnam, in Saigon, because I knew you could get them there. I knew you could get the GMT and you could get a Submariner, and they're about $150 or something like that.
Yeah.
But then I got to that page in 1968 in Cry Havoc. I'm like, that's not very exciting just to buy it at the PX. I'm like, so I had to.
I need to come up with a good story for this.